Hey guys, welcome back to ProgramHub, and today in this episode we're gonna talk about the new MacBook Pro M1 Pro for programming. So guys, there had been questions in the last few days, a lot of questions by the way. So we had tried to test this machine. This is the base model variant that comes up with an 16 GB of unified memory along with the 10 cores CPU and 16 cores of GPU. So we have tried to test this machine for a very long time now for programming perspective, and we have tried to test almost everything now into it. So today we are going to review this machine for programming perspective. So coming down to the very first thing and very common thing, that is general level programming. So if you're trying to do programming into C, C++, Java or Python, so that is fantastically alright. So there is no issues, there is no problems in doing any of the general level programming in this machine. It serves really good and there's really amazing compilation speeds and everything. Coming down to the next thing, that is web development. So if you're a front-end developer or a back-end developer into web development, and if you want to use a laptop for those purposes, so for those purposes either this machine is really great into performance and there's absolutely no problem, because that's just in general way of like how do you treat internet as your programming perspective. So there's absolutely no issues. If you're trying to build it into PHP or any other language, you can comfortably and very easily try to manage up all the things in this machine. Coming down to the next thing, that is the most favorite of every programmer, that is Visual Studio Code. Now there might be a question that whether Visual Studio Code is supported on this machine or not. So quite frankly speaking, Visual Studio Code is now available as a native version for Apple Silicon, and it supports almost all the extensions. So there is absolutely no issues into the extensions, and Visual Studio Code performs really seamless onto it. So there is absolute no mess around over here, because the native version for the Visual Studio Code is already available. And by the way, if you want to download that, the link is down into the description below. Coming down to the next thing, that is Android Studio. So if you're doing Android programming and if you want Android Studio to be working onto it, so Android Studio is now available as a native version for this machine for all the Apple Silicons. But if we talk about the stability, so the stability has not yet been achieved yet, because right now the Arctic Fox version that is currently available for the Mac M1s, it gives out in slight issues and errors when you are trying to install that. But we have tried to use a stable version that was released on 28th of July 2021. So that was a stable version that we tried installing on this machine, and it worked really well. So there's no problems into it. But yes, the latest version, the Arctic Fox version, gives out a little bit errors and little bit issues while installation. But we tried installing the stable version, and if you want to download that version and install that in any one of the Mac machines, the link is down in the description below. You can try installing that, and you can perfectly go with any other, like any project that you want to build on Android Studio. So guys, it had been really good experience on the Android Studio on this machine. And the first thing that I would like to tell you all about is the speed with which it compiles and builds the project. So it just takes around 6 to 8 seconds for building the projects in Android Studio. That is pretty fast. Like, that's incredible, and we haven't expected that to happen. But yeah, it builds and compiles the projects in just 6 and 8 seconds, and that's really amazing. Coming down to the emulators are either supported on this machine, so there is no problems with the emulators. Pastly, when the Mac M1 was released, there was no support for the emulators, but now we have the Android emulators running on Mac M1. On any of the Mac M1 machines, if you're trying to use emulators, you can perfectly use that, because now that's available as a native version, and completely ARM version has been now made available. And we have also tried testing out, so specifically for the emulators, the speed has been really good into this machine. So onto the previous Mac M1, that was the MacBook Air, when we tried testing on that machine, it took around 30 seconds 40 seconds for loading the emulators. But now on this machine, it takes around just 6 to 7 seconds, and that's pretty fast. So if you're doing Android programming, so for that purpose, either this machine is really great and really efficient. So if I compare this to the Intel Core i7 version that I was using before this, so that took a little bit of a while for compilation, building the projects, but this machine is a real beast into it. So for Android development, it's in good years. Getting to the next thing, that is the Homebrew. So if you're using Homebrew, for package management. For those who do not know what Homebrew is, that is a package manager that keeps you updated, and very easily you can install any of the packages, like for example for Java JDK, then SDK for Android, and all those packages you can very easily install using the Homebrew. So Homebrew is also now supported on Apple Silicon, and there is absolutely no issues into it. So I have tried testing in packages for JDK as well as Android SDK. So those all packages just go very smooth and very easy and seamless. So there's no problem with the Homebrew. And for the Xcode, now if we talk all about one of the best and most optimized softwares ever what you can get onto an Mac OS. So Xcode, obviously, because this is primarily made by Apple and maintained by Apple, so they have all the optimizations available for this. So there is no problem with the Xcode either. So if you want to go with the Xcode just runs very fine and amazing over here. Then coming to the support for Flutter even. Now Flutter is also now supported for the Mac M1's Apple Silicon. So if you are trying to test or use the machine for Flutter, because I preferably use Flutter a lot for development of the applications and the websites that I make. So I had been using this machine for Flutter development for quite a while into the past few days, and it served really well. There's absolutely no problems right now. But yeah, there are some tools of Flutter that still don't have the native support of the Apple Silicon. They are using Rosetta too, but that's completely all right and fine. There's no problem while installation, while doing any of the works. So as part of my perspective, what I have got into an experience like using this machine for the past few days, there wasn't any quite like significant errors or bugs into the Flutter development kit. So that works completely fine. And we also have some test results over here. So when we tried testing this machine, MacBook Pro M1 Pro, for compilation of the Android, so when we tried to build the projects for Android, it took around just 15 seconds. So in the 15 seconds of time, the projects was really built into it, and sometimes even it just pops up into 6 or 7 seconds. So building time is significantly fast what compared to the Core i7 of an Intel version. It used to take around 40 seconds for the building of the Android projects. Now that is being reduced to almost 15 seconds of time. So we can say at least this is 2 times faster than the Core i7 version. Now coming down to the simulations and the building time in iOS. So if you have been building the applications for iOS, so this machine takes around 30 seconds for building the applications in iOS. So if you're trying to build an application and test that into a simulator in iOS, so it takes around 30 seconds on an average, and sometimes either it goes for 10 to 12 seconds. That's pretty fast. And if we compare that to the Intel Core i7 version, in which we are trying to compile the code, so it goes around 2 minutes on an average. So we can say specifically over here, this is at least 3 times faster. So if you're compiling and building codes, that is for iOS, so it goes around 3 times more faster into Flutter. Now coming down to the CocoaPods. So for running the simulators, you need the CocoaPods that has been currently supported on the Mac M1. So any of the Apple Silicon currently supports, and we have tried and tested this on this machine. It works really awesome and amazing. There's absolutely no problem into the installation, neither into compilation of the codes. So everything just goes way beyond the expectation. Now guys, these have been some of the tests that we have done on this machine, and now as in general perspective of a feature, what we would like to tell you all about is the RAM and the CPU efficiency. So the RAM and the CPU efficiency on this machine has been really amazing. So if we try to show you what this machine can actually perform, so if we just get into the machine right now, so if I open up the activity monitor over here, you can see that the memory is currently utilizing 11 GBs because there is currently some of the applications like Android Studio is now open over here, as well as we have got a simulator that is running along with an project for Flutter. Along with that, we have also got Notion running and then Visual Studio Code running. So you can see that the memory is currently being utilized at to around 11 GB. Along with that, the CPU utilization is just around 25% and 75% is still idle. So just to show you what the limits of this machine is, so I'll be trying to test. I'll just try to open up some more emulators over here. So getting to the Android, I'll just try to open one of the emulators over here. So yeah, the emulator is now running up here. So if I just try to compile the code, so yeah, the building has been started. So you can see that there is absolutely no specific jerk. So the it has been done, by the way. So if you are trying building applications, it is now done. So now if you just open up the CPU monitor over here, so if you just open the CPU monitor, yeah, so CPU monitor is now open. You can see there is absolutely no mess into it. The efficiency cores are getting filled up, but the performance cores are still sitting idle. So there's still space for more performance. So let's open up something called Parallels. Let's hit Parallels open. So let's boot up Windows 11. So currently we are running on a trial version, by the way, but let's open it. So now Windows is booting. Let's check the memory consumption right now. So memory consumption is around 13 GB now. Swap memory is just started to 246 MBs. So we have got Windows 11 running onto Parallels. Now if you have a look at to the memory management, it says that Windows 11 using Parallels consumes around 16 GB of memory. But still, the memory used on this machine, the physical memory used on this machine stays around 13 GB. And if you see the core efficiency, the cores over here, so if you just have a look at all the cores, you can see that the efficiency cores are getting pushed to the limits, but performance stays over here. So we have got still more space for performance, and we currently have 77% of idle CPU. So let's try and test and run something more demanding, CPU consuming and everything. Let's try to open up YouTube. So now let's open up YouTube and let's run a video that is in 4K video. So pushing it to the more limits. Yeah, till the time it loads up, we are still looking, have a look at the CPU. So CPU performance still great enough. There's more space now into the CPU still, and the RAM consumption is around 13 GB as usual. Now I'm trying to open up one of the most power consuming, CPU consuming, memory consuming application, that is AutoCAD. We are also trying to run AutoCAD now. So guys, we can see that there is still more space into the CPU because the CPU still has 62% of more space for efficiency and performance. So we have opened up AutoCAD and the memory is still around 14 GB. So let's open up a project and so we have a project that we are trying to open up. So now the project is open. We are trying to just scale, zoom it and rotate it. Nothing more right now. So we are trying to just scale and zoom it. Now it is building slightly a little more amount of pressure onto the RAM now, but still everything is smooth and snappy and everything goes on very easily. The videos are running into the background into 4K resolution. Along with that, we have got emulators running for Android. Along with that, we also have the simulator running for iOS. Along with that, we have the Android Studio running with the Visual Studio Code. Also, we have got some more applications open around over here, but everything still till now is very snappy, very easy and very good looking. So everything is real functional and everything is going really smooth right now. So there is nothing of an issues, particularly what we can see right now. There is a little bit a more amount of pressure being built on the RAM, but everything is still good. Now to push the limits even more further onto the CPU as well as on the RAM, we have opened up Final Cut Pro. Now Final Cut Pro is a more CPU intensive as well as GPU intensive and requires more amount of RAM for running and for performance. So now we have already opened up Final Cut Pro. As you can see, we already have a project down over here that is of around 4 minutes of time. So this is shot into 4K, color edited color, and there is color grading done on this. So still now, with all the applications open, we have got the Final Cut Pro. Along with that, we have AutoCAD. Along with that, we have got a 4K resolution of a video playing into the background. We have Safari with some tabs open. We have got Parallels still running and performing. So we have got Windows 11 into Parallels. Along with that, we have the Android Studio, an emulator for Android, then simulator for iOS, and we have the Visual Studio Code and a Notion application open. So guys, we have got so many applications open up over here, and still the RAM consumption is just around 14 GB. Yeah, the swap memory has just opened up for 500 MB, but that is not yet huge amount because
as we consider right now, so Parallels is already consuming 15 GB of memory. It needs 15 GB of memory, but I don't know what is happening into the background, how the entire optimization has been done over here, because in spite of having so much of memory been allotted to Parallels as well as to Android emulators, then to simulators and everything, the memory utilization is just staying around at 214 GB. Along with that, we have the CPU still having an idle space of 76%. So now let's do one thing. Let's try to render up a footage that is 4K into 4K resolution. So we just go over here and we are rendering this into Apple ProRes 422, and we just go ahead and try to render up this next onto the screen and save. Let's see what's the difference right now. So it will, by the way, render very fast in spite of everything. Now the idle space that is moving up in the CPU goes up till 6% of idleness. So that's a huge consumption over here. The memory is also pushing around to 14 GB. That's it. There is nothing more difference, but the only difference that is coming up over here is into the CPU. CPU is getting to an idleness of 4%. There is only 4% idleness, and the video is rendered done. So video is already done into it. So you can see that with so much of things running around into the background, still the machine performs so much great. And guys, one thing that I would like to specifically talk about in this everything. So since we had done everything out over here, so one thing that I would like to talk all about is the thermals. The thermals on this machine is just amazing. One of the best machine what I have ever got from MacBook into MacBook. So that has got one of the best thermals. So quite frankly, I will say this one thing, that since the time I have bought this machine and I've tried running everything intensive on this, so never had been a time when this machine got actually heated up, as well as there had been no time when I can actually hear the fan noise. So fan noise is absolutely very silent. So almost like I have never ever heard the machine's fan sound, because if I had been using the 2018 model MacBook Pro, so fans just kick up all the time, and they also run when I'm trying to just browse through some of the tabs in Safari. So at that moment of time also the laptop gets heated up and there's fan noise, but in this machine it's completely stable. There is no mess around anything. Now coming down to the next thing, that is the display support. So as being a programmer, we need more number of displays. So this machine, that is the M1 Pro version, it currently supports 2 displays that can be connected to this machine directly. So the 2 displays can be of in 6K resolution. And guys, if you had been upgrading this up to M1 Max, so there you can get a support of 4 displays. 3 could be 6K resolution and 1 could be in 4K resolution. So until unless you don't need much more extension to 4 displays, so you don't need to jump up to the M1 Max model. So that would be a consideration from my end. And as well as coming to the keyboard typing experience has been really amazing, because as programmers, the one tool that we required for writing the programs and the codes is the keyboard. And on this machine, the keyboard experience has been just amazing. The typing experience is just smooth enough. I can just go on and on for a complete entire day typing on this machine. As compared to the 2018 MacBook Pros and the previous MacBooks, so on that machine the keyboard was good enough, but on this is incredibly one of the best keyboards what I have ever got, because typing experience has been really great over here, and the feedback that we get from the keyboards is just tactile enough, and it's really great and awesome. So considering to the trackpad, either trackpad is just great, because one of the best trackpads what we can get in any of the laptops is onto this MacBook Pro. So guys, this has been a complete experience what I have got into this MacBook Pro M1 Pro for development perspective. So I hope I have answered all the queries down right over here, and if you've got any more issues and any more queries that you want me to answer, do comment it down below. So guys, the final opinion would be that if you are even going up with the 16 GB base variant of the unified memory along with the 10 cores of CPU and 16 cores of GPU, so that will serve you for with a greater extension for all the development perspective. So you can just run any program into it without any issues and without any lags, by the way. So this machine can be one of the very good machines over any another upgrade for you. So guys, this has been the complete review for this MacBook Pro M1 Pro for development perspective. So guys, if you liked our video, do hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more such updates, and meet you in the next episode. Till then, goodbye.